ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयामदेवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सहना भवतु
सहनौ भुनक्तु
सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
ॐ ब्रह्मादेवानां प्रथमः सम्बभूव
ॐ ब्रह्मादेवानां प्रथमः सम्बभूव
टुगेदर विश्वस्य कर्ता भुवनस्य गोप्ता स ब्रह्म विद्यां सर्वविद्या प्रतिष्ठाम् अथर्वाय ज्येष्ठपुत्राय प्राह अथर्वणेयां प्रवदेत ब्रह्मा अथर्वातां पुरोवाचाङ्गिरे ब्रह्मविद्यां स भारद्वाजाय सत्यवहाय प्राह भारद्वाजो गिरसे परावराम् शौनको ह वै महाशालः अङ्गिरसं विधिवदुपसन्नः पप्रच्छ कस्मिन्नु भगवो विज्ञाते सर्वमिदं विज्ञातं भवतीति तस्मै स होवाच द्वे विद्ये वेदितव्ये इति हस्म परा यद्ब्रह्मविदो वदन्ति परा चैवापरा च तत्रापरा ऋग्वेदो यजुर्वेदः सामवेदो अथर्ववेदः शिक्षाकल्पो व्याकरणनिरुक्तं छन्दसो ज्योतिषमिति अथ परा यया अक्षरमधिगम्यते. This akshara that we have been seeing, na ksharati. Kshara means decline. In that which doesn't decline is called akshara. Even in grammar we have things that don't decline, thankfully. Like cha. We don't say cha, chau. You know, che. Cha, chau, che. We say kaha, kau, ke. But we don't say cha, chau, che. Thank God. You know. Yeah. Atha doesn't decline. Mithya, even though in reality mithya is the most declining thing, the word mithya doesn't decline. Ah. That shows that consciousness of mithya is so deep rooted that Bhagavan made the word only not decline, because it refuses to decline in the mind. So there are certain indeclinables, grammar wise, okay? Yeah.
Yes.
But if you look at the world, everything is always declining. Yeah. You know, William Butler Yeats wrote one poem. I heard the old men say. Why old men? Because they have some experience. Anubhava is there. And what did they say? Everything alters. And one by one things drop away. This is what he heard the old men say. I tell you, these romantic poets, they were fantastic. Really fantastic. And so therefore what? Everything alters and everything drops away. And so therefore the word akshara used by the Upanishad has a very important, weightage here. It's a loaded word. Akshara means that which doesn't decline. How many things you can count in akshara? Cha, atha, ha, tu, vai and Brahman. 6 things, correct? 6 indeclinables, yes? Cha, I just told you that doesn't decline. And then, va means or, mithya. And then, what else? Havai, all these things. Sma, these are all indeclinable particles and Brahman, correct? So these indeclinable particles are called nipataha in Sanskrit. So these nipatas and Brahman, 2 things don't decline, correct? There are 2 things in the world that don't decline. These indeclinable particles and Brahman. Am I right or wrong? Only on the surface. Really speaking, grammatical declinations is not our issue here. In fact, the grammar itself declines, correct? Grammar changes. Yeah. And all the spellings of everything has changed. Dialogue. How did we spell it when we were children? G-U-E. Yeah. And now it's, that U-E is gone. And then, how did we spell program? M-M-E. Yeah, one M-E has gone. Yeah. Now we have to spell argue, A-R-G. Don't arg. by the same token. Monologue, dialogue, arg. Correct? That's how it is going to become. And if you look at Chaucer, what? Nobody knows. People know saucer, but they don't know Chaucer. This Chaucer's English had so many E's, extra E's. Yeah, you could, have it on your dinner plate. Extra helping of E's. Everywhere there was E. At the end of everything there was either E or UE or something. So many E's. So now Chaucerian English, if you start, old, the word old would have an E after that. Even Shakespearean, but Shakespeare already, trimmed a few things after Chaucer. And then Shakespeare in English at that time was the happening thing because they thought, oh, some modern rishi has come. But then now Shakespeare is so old. Nobody writes like that. And with the American English, unfortunately, predominating over the world affairs, vyavaharas, all the fun of the language is all declined. You have to, and the usage, what is intriguing is the usage of the articles. The articles are also dropping. Like, it was a must to put the the and the an or a in front of all the things, Now it's not there. Yeah, it's all just, we have all become just lazy. So many things have dropped.
Has to fit on Twitter. 22 letters.
Everything has to be in the, Facebook worthy. Yeah. And then at this rate, we will not be ready to show our faces because of our mastery of the language. It's just so much, so much influenced by all this. Very sad. But what does this point show? Grammar. Even Sanskrit grammar has declined. Declined in the sense changed. Yeah. It has also declined. Before we were such sticklers, we couldn't think of teaching Sanskrit without Panini. Then Antoine came along, a Jesuit priest by the name of Antoine. Yeah. So we couldn't think of teaching without Panini. Panini was the one used to teach the language. Not anymore. So therefore what? So therefore we have to see this, that it's not true to say that there is indeclinables. Grammar hasn't declined and Brahman also hasn't declined. There are two things. How many things that are there that are not declining? Huh? Only one. What is that? You. Yeah. That's what you have to see it as. So the word akshara does not apply to all these relative indeclinables, because the relative indeclinables are part of a rubric of that which was, this is how we have to use our brains, that which was called Vyakaranam. And where did Vyakaranam come? In Apara Vidya or Para Vidya? Look at the list. Apara. So how can you say that that and Brahman, only two things don't decline? Not correct. So the only thing that doesn't decline is Brahman, which happens to be you. And this knowledge is called, Para Vidya, that knowledge. The knowledge of your nature as not being subject to change, decline, or any kind of attrition. Because with language there is attrition, with any kind of knowledge there is attrition. That which is not subject to any attrition, chopping off. Brahman before was spelt with an E, now the E is silent. No such thing. Correct? Atma. Then it will become Atma because the A has gone. No such thing. Because it is always the same. And this knowledge is called Akshara Vidya or Para Vidya or Brahma Vidya, Atma Vidya, by many, many names. Not to get confused, because many names refer to that same knowledge. And last time I said, if we are constrained to say in a few words what this knowledge really is about, it is about the discovery of oneself. That is really what this knowledge is about. And discovery of oneself as what? As a human being? Well, that unfortunately I already knew that. As an idiot, yeah, that also I kind of knew. I was not willing to admit it, but I knew that. As someone who is subject to kshaya, that I already know. Unfortunately, that is my thing. As subject to karma, don't talk about karma. Then what is it? Discovery of one's own nature as what? As that which is the source of compassion and unconditional love. That is what really Akshara boils down to. I heard from some people who had, different people who had gone to see Pujya Swamiji, especially these days when he was not doing well earlier. And I believe some people asked, discreet people at different times asked him, what can we do to help? What can we do? And he just said, unconditional love and compassion. These were the words he said. Repeatedly. Different people. And they all, said this. Unconditional love and compassion. So this really, and this is very telling, because when, especially coming from Pujya Swamiji, at a time when, during his recovery, when words itself were hard to come by, because so, weak. And then in that, he was able to just give the kernel of the knowledge to whoever came and asked. This is what you have to be. This is what you have to do. This is what you have to see as yourself. This is what you have to understand. So the discovery of that this I, who constantly feels assailed, insecure, fearful, unconfident or underconfident, and always worried about making mistakes, and always worried about how to be in this world, and always worried about how to relate to others. Walking on eggshells is, am I doing the right thing? When to do this, when not to do this, how to do this. And what is this Vedanta, how to get this? That it is already you. So if you are not a compassionate and unconditionally loving person, you can never become one, correct? Why? Because swabhavasya na nivrittihi, you cannot become, if it's not your nature, you cannot, do that. Like fire cannot pray to Bhagavan every day. Oh, who will fire pray to? Indra, oh Indra. Because it cannot say, oh Agni. Why? Because it is itself. So it will pray to the next Vedic Devata at hand. Oh Indra. Yeah, Kim Tat, what? Please make me cold. Please make me cold. Make me just like this ice that I have fallen in love with. Yeah. Fire and ice combination not very nice, But fire wants to, be like ice so that they can have a life together. Right now it is fraught with danger because each one can put the other off. Literally and figuratively put off, yeah. So right now it's a no-go, correct? Yeah. So therefore what? So it prays every day. Bho, Indra, yes, make me cold, make me cold, make me cold. And this ice also is very nice. And the ice also is saying its own prayer. Make me hot, make me have some flames. Some smoke I can give, says Indra, because when you take the ice out little, spires of cold smoke come out. Some little, but that's just abhasa, that's just an appearance. Even Bhagavan cannot oblige, because swabhavasya na nivrittihi. If that is your swabhava, to not be compassionate, to not be loving, then no amount of prayer and effort is going to make that happen, correct? Like fire and ice cannot live happily ever after. Why? Because they don't have even a single thing in common. Yeah, not a single thing in common, and no amount of striving and trying and wishing and thinking and crying is going to make that, happen. And so therefore what? Therefore this is not a possibility. So then, if we operate from that premise that I, am an uncompassionate person by nature, then that also doesn't sit very well. I am unloving and uncompassionate. Do you feel good saying that? No. Would you admit that in a big crowd? No. Would you admit that even in a small crowd to your loved ones and family, to gather your children and spouse together and say, you know what, I'm just a mean fellow, I'm an uncompassionate fellow. It's not easy to admit. Why? There is vyabhichara here, there is a discrepancy. And that discrepancy itself, if it is your nature, you should be able to admit so many other things you admit about your nature. Somebody comes and, tries to put something on your plate. Oh, I don't like that. I'm not that kind of a person. Somebody invites you to go somewhere. Oh, I don't attend, sports because I'm not into sports. Oh, I don't go to movies because I'm not into these kinds of movies. You're able to admit that very happily, very easily. But why is there shame to say, I am an extremely unloving and uncompassionate person? Take it or leave it. Yeah, even Scrooge in that story, he also could not admit. He also had to bend and discover that, speaking of ice, thaw out all the frozen parts of himself. Even in that Christmas story.
Christmas Carol.
Yeah, Christmas story. And so this is something which gives us a moment of pause, a thought. And what is that thought? The thought is that we have to see the truth of this. That maybe it is not my nature. Because if it was my nature, I should have admitted it proudly. Or at least admitted it. But I am not even able to say it in a crowd. Even though I may suspect it sometimes, but I am not able to say it. And the other thing, the other proof that I am not an uncompassionate person is that many times I have no problem being compassionate. Sometimes I have problem being compassionate. So there is more of an inhibition. Whatever I find in my life is an inhibition to the compassion. Not that there is no compassion. Again, I am able to love. If not anything else, the pet dog I am definitely able to love. Yeah, why? Because it knows the meaning of unconditional love. It definitely knows. I read one very sad story that these, what are they called? These SPCA. The Society for Prevention of Cruelty. Are only in England, because everything they have to put royal in front. So we are not that royal. So this SPCA went and rescued one dog. And this dog belonged to an alcoholic person, given to alcohol. And he would drink. Everybody else had left, the dog had not left. He would beat the dog. And then after beating the dog, he would pass out. And that same beaten dog, sometimes its legs would be all cut up because he would throw things at it, bottles and all kinds of things, very sad. It dragged itself and would come and sit with him and keep him warm and all these things when he had passed out. And then when the SPCA came, it refused to go with them. It just staged a morcha right there and refused to go. This is the, animals sometimes are better than we are. So at least with the pet dog, one is able to love it unconditionally, if not humans. So the word unconditional also is very interesting, because that means that somehow during the course of this life and during the course of the ajnanam, which is a big, inhibition, the love and the compassion have got some conditions in my heart. And what is this akshara? Akshara is the knowledge that removes the barriers to that compassion and the barriers to that love. So that the love is not channeled into a little trickle only meant for one person who is bringing out my pleased self and not meant for the other. And the compassion is not drying up before it reaches those who are meant to reach. And the compassion also is divested. It is a compassion if it is my nature. We have to see that it is divested from all other aspects of the assumed personality. If compassion is Purusha, if endless love and compassion limitlessness is Purusha. So compassion is limitlessness plus, that's all. So if compassion is Purusha, the person, the Ragadveshas are a surface level personality. So the compassion has nothing to do with Ragadveshas. But unfortunately it gets filtered through them when it comes out in expression. And therefore what? It all goes back to Ragadvesha management, Ragadvesha reduction, all these things, to be able to express that. So this akshara is not some kind of a big bolt from the blue that some knowledge will come and then some knowledge called bliss will come and this bliss will sit upon the head. Like sometimes the bird comes and sits upon the head. Bliss will sit upon the head, and then bliss will percolate, and then I'll start feeling blissful with a capital B all the time. That's not what this is about. I don't know where this unfortunate word called bliss came from. Unfortunate means too much overused. That's why it's of no use to us. So it's not about that. Ananda here means not really bliss, but which is an experience, we are not talking of experience, we are talking of the nature of the experiencer. So we are constrained to use words such as compassion and what else? The love, all these, because they are the dynamic form of Ananda, Ananta, that we are able to recognize. Happiness, compassion, love, etc. They are the dynamic form of this, what we are talking of. This limitlessness, how to recognize limitlessness, how to recognize it in myself whenever there is no inhibition to the outpouring of compassion and love, wherever there is no, when and where, both time and place I am taking, wherever there is no condition or limitations or inhibitions to the outpouring of the love and compassion that is my own nature, that is what is called Ananda. Because that is when I am not afraid, because I am not afraid to express my nature. That is when I am not insecure. That is when I am not underconfident. That is when I am not feeling small. That is when I am not feeling inhibited in any other way. That is when I am not thinking about the future, what will happen now I am giving, will it come back? Will they remember and give it back, or will Bhagavan remember and give it back? Or will my future home look like a large cardboard box? All these fears, these fears about the future, all these things are inhibitions. So, but sometimes I am able to do that. I am able to overcome the inhibitions because the inhibitions are mithya. They are kshara. The compassion is akshara. Do you see how the akshara, because it is being expressed through this upadhi of ignorance, feels that even it has joined the ranks of the kshara, but it hasn't. It remains uniquely itself. So the knowledge of oneself, or rather it can't even be called knowledge, the discovery that happens as a result of paravidya, that I am the only thing that there is and I am enough. I am enough. This is really very good affirmation. I am enough. I have enough. In fact, I wrote it in our calendar for the classes, if you have seen. I am enough. I have enough. I don't need anything else to complete me. I am totally enough, exactly as I am. This is that knowledge that gives the understanding or reiterates this understanding. It brings it out of the dredges of the ragadveshas to be able to see, appreciate and assimilate. This is what is called akshara vidya or paravidya. And it says yaya adhigamyate, yaya being feminine. We have to say how adhigamyate, we'll see soon it will say. Yaya means yaya vritya. Vritti jnana. Vritti means it is a cognitive pursuit. Like I said, if you are not compassionate by nature, you cannot quote unquote become compassionate. And if you are compassionate already, you cannot become uncompassionate if that is your nature. So, if I am compassionate, but I am behaving as though I am not compassionate towards myself and others, that means what? There is a problem here. At what level? Not at the level of producing compassion, but at the level of understanding that I am already compassionate, or the discovery part of it is where this is lacking. And so therefore what do I have to do? I have to know it. And that by which this understanding is driven home, those words culled from the Upanishads. Culled means what? Selectively, gathered. The Upanishad already has made a selection. Out of that, because the knowledge is channeled through the teacher, and then the teacher is percolating that knowledge in a different way, in a way that whoever is sitting in front can understand, and is giving that knowledge with the same pedagogy received from the teacher. That makes something go home. Why? What do you mean by go home? Because it is understood as you. You are the whole. You are fearless. You are wantless. You are enough. You have enough. You don't need anything else to fulfill you, to complete you. So, when I say this, sometimes there are heads nodding. They may be online also, I cannot see. But there are heads nodding, yeah. Why? That means what? That there is an agreement? How can you agree to just a bunch of words? Anybody can come and say anything, you'll agree? No, we have Shraddha. Shraddha is not enough to agree. If you have Shraddha and I say this is mango, you're going to agree? Wonderful mango, look. Very nice mango, nice and heavy. Very nice mango. Orange color, nice mango. Look at the shape, look at the size. Mango flavor. Why are you not agree? You should have Shraddha. Correct? No, we have Shraddha, but we have a little more Shraddha in our eyes. Because you are saying something in our eyes, we cannot be deceived by our own eyes. We have more Shraddha in our eyes than in your words, and if there is a contradiction between the words and the eyes, we are going to choose our eyes. And you should. Absolutely. Because they are what is called primary pramanas. So then how come, if I say this is mango, you go like this, but then if I say this is you are unconditional love. Yeah, that's what I am. ठीक है, अच्छा लगता है. What is it? What is this vyabhichara? What is this? Oh, this is unfair. You should have the same attitude towards everything. If you say no like this, then this also you should say you are compassionate. No way, not me. Must be the neighbor, not me. You are all love, not me. Nobody objects. Even the one full of ragadveshas, whose love and compassion comes out once a year, is also objecting. Is also not objecting to this. Why? This is my question. Why? Because this is also knowledge, correct? That this is that this is mango is kupramana or dushta pramana, wrong pramana. And so that you are compassionate, then both are pramanas, correct? Why you agree with the latter but disagree with the former? Yeah, this is a very interesting question. You have no problem agreeing with it because somewhere inside the yearning is to discover that. The original yearning, the only want is to discover oneself as endless love and compassion. This is what it is, endlessly. That's the only want. All other wants are just, actually they are don't wants. Yeah, they should not be called wants at all. They are all don't wants. Meaning if I don't want them, I'll be better off. So that's what it is. So these are all don't wants. And then there is the only want. But because that only want to know oneself as that fulfilled being, which one already suspects one is, that suspicion is there. That is why there is that agreement, there is that match. There is that inside match of what I want to be and what I am hearing. And here there is no match between mango and apple. There is no match at all between what I see and what I hear. But here, between what I hear and what I inside yearn for, there is a match. So that yearning is fulfilled by the words of the Shastra, Guru Mukhat, coming through the teacher. It fulfills that yearning, which is the the kingpin of all yearnings. Every yearning is because of this alone. Wanting to be fulfilled, wanting to be whole, wanting to be complete, wanting to be enough, wanting to be totally compassionate, wanting to be totally just the incarnation of love, like Bhagavan Krishna. That's why he's called Krishna. From Krish, to draw, to pull, to attract. That's why everybody was in love with him. All the gopis, the milkmaids were in love. And nobody asked the question why the husbands did not object when the milkmaids were always after him. Because they were also, the husbands were also in love with Krishna. Nobody objected because he was just the incarnation of love. And this is what it is. Love and Ananda, that is what he was. And so therefore, there is no objection here because I already know this somewhere. I already want this somewhere. And to hear that matches what I already want. So all other wants are just ragadvesha based wants that have somehow, got distorted through the various filters of insecurity, fear, and all that kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, the 6 different difficult negative, emotions. The compassion, when it filters through that, looks distorted, like when you go and stand in front of the Disney trick mirrors. In one you look all wavy, in one you look like a, what is that, blimp? Yeah. That goes in the sky, that round thing. And in one you look like a stick because you are all compressed together. In one, the face looks very big, the body looks tiny. In another, the face looks like a peanut and the body is huge. All these trick mirrors are there. And if you can imagine what the inner mirrors of ragadveshas, how they mirror this compassion and how they mirror this unconditional love, you can imagine what happens to that. And that is why this knowledge, to write that is necessary, because this knowledge is a clear mirror that reflects you exactly as you are, without any distortions, vagueness, errors and problems. So that is why this knowledge is very, very, very sacred. And that is why it's a cognitive pursuit, because it's not trying to make something compassionate, it has nothing to do with action. And so that is why it is differentiated from apara and para. Apara, all these things that are these heaps of words, Adi Shankara is going to say. And then para is that cognition alone coming through what is called Shabda Pramana, the words of the teacher, of course gathered from the Upanishad. So the words of the Upanishad through the teacher, along with the pedagogy of the teaching, received in the mind of the student as an affirming understanding of the truth of oneself, which is already self-existent. That is what is called para. Everything else is apara. Okay? That is what is called akshara. Alright. So with that, equipped with that, we can now begin to read the Bhashya. Tatra kapara iti uchyate Rigvedo yajurvedah Samvedo atharvavedah Ityete Chatvaro vedaha Shiksha kalpo vyakaranam Niruktam chando jyotisham Iti angani Shadesha Paravidya Aparavidya. Yeah, he is just listing what the Upanishad already listed. Tatra means in this context. Okay? And then ka para iti uchyate. So first he says, now what is para? is what is apara is discussed. Ka apara iti uchyate. What is apara is first told. What is that? All the four Vedas. Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda. And then Chatvara means four. Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Chandasa, Jyotisham. These are the Vedangas. And last time we discussed them in detail. You know, if you have forgotten, please listen to the last class. And so we discussed those in details, the different, prosody, grammar, etc. And this is all, this whole group together of knowledges is called what? Apara Vidya. Shat means these 6 Vedangas are called Apara Vidya. That's all. He is just listing what the Upanishad already listed. Atha idanim iyam para vidya uchyate yaya tat vakshyamana visheshanam aksharam adhigamyate prapyate. Yeah. So atha. So where is this atha from the text? Atha. What does atha mean? Atha means idanim. Idanim means what? Atha. What is atha? Now. Yeah. Now means there should have been a then. Where was the then? Tatra. Yeah. So the earlier was mentioned, then was the list of Aparavidya. Now Paravidya is going to be elucidated. Uchyate is going to be elucidated. Yaya. Yaya means by which vidya. Tat vakshyamana visheshanam. That which is going to be addressed in the next mantra by certain attributes as though attributes, okay? So that which is going to be addressed, he doesn't say this, I am saying this, in the next mantra, Visheshanam Aksharam Adhigamyate. And so Yaya Aksharam Adhigamyate, he is elucidating. So this Aksharam, he does not go into detail here as we did today. He just says that which is going to be, whose nature of which Aksharam, whose nature is going to be elucidated later. Vakshamanam means that which is going to be talked about, that which is going to be spoken of. And then what? With certain, characteristics is going to be with certain definitions. Visheshana should not be taken as attributes. Definition, which is going to be defined later. Aksharam, that is that. Adhigamyate, he is going to describe now. Adhigamyate means what? Prapyate, is gained. Otherwise, if you say adhi plus gam means what? To go. Where are you going to go for this knowledge? Kidhar jayega? Vapas aayega. That's all. You'll just go. You have to come back. Where will you go? This knowledge is about who? You. And, as what? As something already self-existent? Yes. As the whose nature is self-existent and whose self-existent nature happens to be all love and compassion. And who happens to be enough without needing anything else. And so what? And so where are you going to go for this, to gain this? It is about a siddha vastu vishaya, meaning it's already an established fact. It is not something to be gained by going out of the house somewhere, or even out of the room somewhere, or out of your chair. There is no need to go there. Oh, this is just armchair philosophy. No. This is not armchair philosophy. You can stand on one leg and gain this vidya. One leg philosophy also it can be, no problem. But the point is, you don't have to move or strive. There is no striving involved in that. In fact, it only comes to those who have stopped striving. This is also implied. That there is no striving for anything. Because we are discovering what already is. Hello. We are not trying to discover what I want to be. And then make a list, I want these goals in 5 years, in 10 years I want to have 10 children. These are not, this is not what this Paravidya is about. It's not about discovering myself, therefore I can then go lead my life. There is nothing to lead. Yes, when you recognize that you are the leader of everything, there is nothing to lead. There is nothing to follow. There is no one to follow, nothing to lead. There, follow this, please, because this is all there is to follow. Follow? Yeah, that's all there is. There is nothing to, there is no end in sight, because this is the only yearning, and this yearning being separated from you by what? Ignorance. What kind of ignorance? Atma ignorance. Atma ignorance means what? Self-ignorance, self-avidya or Atma ignorance. You can take it both ways. So this self-avidya, I don't know myself as that which I seek to be, that which I want to be. So when knowing this, there is nothing more to do. There is nothing more to desire. There is nothing more to go after. It's not that I gain this knowledge, he's going to tell this later. And then I have to cook this knowledge on the stove over a low flame until everything balls up into one big ball, like some burfis, when you make burfis. And please don't say barfi, okay? That has a different meaning. Sometimes this American pronunciation, that is not there. So you ask a American child to say barfi, it will say barfi. Yesterday I had this experience, I was serving and one child said, "Is that a barfi?" I said, "Most definitely not. It is not barfi, it is barfi." Anyway, so you make this, so you have to put these milk solids, then you put sugar, and that sugar makes a mess and makes everything, liquid, and then, you have to keep going round and round, for an interminable length of time. And then finally it becomes one big ball of compassion. No, big ball of sugar and calories and milk solids. And then, and it leaves the side of the pan, correct? And then it is ready to be put in another flat dish. And then after it cools, you cut into pieces. Yeah, this vidya is not wanting you to make everything gather into a big ball of understanding. Yeah, the pan represents the hot-headed person where the knowledge is still yet gooey it is. Gooey, correct? And then you have to stir it and work very hard, and in order to that you have to engage in various karmas. You have to go and do this and go and do that. You have to just be like this restless squirrel, indecisive and restless. To cross the road? No, not now. To cross the road? No, not now. And here in Eugene, where ahimsa is prevalent, it's the biggest cause of frustration for all drivers. Because they don't know, because see, already there are enough stop signs and bumps and humps on the road. And then on top of that, this squirrel is the traffic police. It will come and stand right in between, twitching its nose and ears and taking its own time to make a decision. And then you think, okay, it has decided, it's going back. Then you move forward, then suddenly it changes its mind and cuts you right in front, and you have the heart comes and sits in the throat. That's what happens. And all the squirrels are nice and fat here, yeah. And the fatter they are, they move less slowly, slower and slower. And then then of course the fatness probably goes in the brain also. Who knows? It's like makes them become very aram and think. No need to think. So this is not like this. That you have to do something after gaining the knowledge. The knowledge is a primal mess, like that primal goo of the Big Bang. Everything is just this liquid, and then it took some years to solidify. This is not what it is about. This is not about karma, please understand. This is not about karma, navratna korma, none of this. Yeah, this is about seeing who you are. There is no striving in seeing who you are. Is there striving in seeing this as a non-mango? Yeah, let's go gradually. Yeah, is there any striving to say this is not a mango? No. And is there any time lapse between saying this is, seeing this and saying this is not a mango? No. It is instantaneous. So too this knowledge is instantaneous because it is already, it is elucidating the nature of something that is already, it is an established done deal. There is nothing more to, there is no do. Yeah. There is no to-do list. And everything that you do is much ado about nothing. Yeah. Just going around in circles. That's all it is. And what happens to people who go around in circles? They all fall down, like the nursery rhyme. Yes. That's all, they all fall down. Patanti evate. Yes. That's all it is. So it is a cognitive pursuit. It is not something first. It's not like a, and he's going to say this all. I'm just giving you so that it's easy to understand afterwards. In cookbook, what do you have to do? You have to read the cookbook. First you have to understand the instruction. And then, the American cooks are very literal, and you give them Indian cookbook means they will just have a heart attack right on the spot. Yeah. And then they don't even understand what is a pinch of something, pinch of cinnamon. How much exactly is a pinch in terms of teaspoon, they will ask. Pinch, dash, they don't understand. They'll make a dash for it, they don't want to even think about it. So, but the cookbook is not enough to stave off the hunger, correct? In fact, if you keep reading recipes, oh, cauliflower surprise, oh how nice, oh this is the sauce in which the cauliflower is swimming, this is wonderful, this looks just like all the things I like here are there, cashew sauce is there and all these things are there, and the cauliflower is taking abhisheka in all these things, fantastic, I want this only. And reading it, what happens? Does the hunger get fulfilled? In fact, it gets more, correct? Yeah. Like Pavlov's dog, the water starts to come in the mouth the more you read it. And then what you have to do? You have to hurry to the market to bring the cauliflower and all the things that it's going to take a bath in. You have to bring the things. And then bringing the things is not enough. You have to chop the things, then you have to put it on the stove, then you have to cook, then you have to say, Kab khatam hoga, when it will be, when I will eat, when I will be satiated. There are so many steps involved. Either you have to do that, or as Pujya Swamiji says, you read the recipe, and if you cannot wait, you eat the recipe book, because then only the hunger, then only the hunger will be staved off. That's what a cow will do. If you show this is a wonderful recipe, look at this wheat grass smoothie, because you have to show something the cow will like. Yeah. Look at this wheat grass smoothie made just for you. Look at this. It will eat the book. It will say, forget the smoothie right now. I'm doing swaha to this smoothie. Yeah. So is this knowledge like that? First you have to cook, you have to gain the knowledge, and then you have to go somewhere, away from all the din and the noise of these lowly mortals who don't have this knowledge. And upar jaake somewhere, upar means what? Somewhere on top of some mountain. Alone. Sit. In the Himalayas when you walk, you find all this. Wherever there is a sadhu, there is one flag. Then if they really want to sit alone, why they put a flag? So that people will come and give bhiksha. Yeah. And whenever somebody comes, they will come out and say, oh, you're taking a walk in the Himalayas, where are you going? You're going to Kedarnath. Wonderful. Badrinath. Wonderful. I'm going to pray that all your darshan becomes very happily. And on the way back, just, bring some food or whatever they will say. Or, they may ask right then. So that this is not the point, is that first you have to, you get the raw materials for the knowledge from the Upanishad and the teacher. And then you have to pound it and bake it and make a cake out of it. If you try to do that, you're going to make a cake out of yourself. That's all. Just foolishness. There is no place for any action, because there is no, need for any action. because this is an instantaneous recognition. That's why I insist on the using the word not cognition but recognition. This is what it is. It's a recognition of your own understanding of how you already are and how you yearn and you really, really long to be. Not just now, but from many, 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 many lifetimes you have carried this longing. But due to severe ragadvesha attacks, that one longing has percolated your mental framework through various, because it has become stuck on the objects that it can see and it can desire, rather than being stuck on the subject which it is, which it already is but cannot see and need not see because it is self-evident. Please see this. This is something to understand. So it's not like a cookbook recipe that you first see the recipe and intellectually download the recipe in your head. Oh, okay, first I have to do that. Step number 2, then I have to do this. You cannot put whatever you want whenever you want. You cannot sort of make, if you put tomatoes in the beginning, then nothing else will cook. Yeah, nothing else will cook. All the vegetables will remain raw because the sour, anything sour, tomatoes, tamarind, if you put at the beginning, gone. You can kiss the dish goodbye. Even if you put in the microwave afterwards, even Agni Devata in the form of microwave cannot oblige very well. Yes, that is Agni Devata only. And so, therefore, we have to see this very, very clearly, that this is not like cooking a dish. This knowledge that is being dished out is non-separate from you. It's non-separate from you. And what is this knowledge? Something that you can already recognize as yourself. Something that you have been waiting to recognize for eons, for many, many lifetimes. Something without knowing which your life is a mess. I'm not making any, I'm not being nice today. Yeah. Some days I can be nicer about this. This is as it is. So without this knowledge, because you can say, okay, what will happen if I don't know I am compassionate? What's the big deal? क्या होगा? कुछ नहीं होगा. Sometimes कभी compassionate, कभी non-compassionate, ठीक है, ऐसा ही रहेगा. You can say that. I'll remain like this. Who are you? Okay, remain. Then what? You're a burden to yourself. You cannot stand yourself. Even though you have this bravado of saying, the person has a bravado of saying, I want to be just like myself. So what if I'm crabby? So what if you're crabby? You won't have friends. So what if I don't have friends? Then you'll be lonely. So what if I'm lonely? Then you'll be very sad. So what if I'm sad? Nobody asks, because nobody wants to be sad. That is where somewhere the buck stops. Yes. You go down the road and somewhere you have to say, okay, this is something I cannot deal with. Sad, lonely, afraid, fearful, insecure, always wondering what's going to happen, how am I going to die, who will be around me, what is this? All these nonsensical ideas is coming because of the insecurity. The insecurity is coming because Atma Avidya. Atma Avidya is relieved by Para Vidya. And therefore what? There is no insecurity. This is simple. This is very simple. Don't make it complicated. First the knowledge comes in raw material, then I have to, that is the theory, then just like recipe book I have to then practice it. I have to cook Atma. Okay, cook Atma. What are the ingredients we'll mix it up with? Anatma, because nothing other than Atma. What is other than Atma? Anatma. So Atma and Anatma ka khichdi pakayega. Paka. Cook. Make a khichdi of Atma and Anatma. What is that? What is the name of that recipe? It's called Samsara, where already it is mixed up in my head. This is my problem. This is the beginning problem, that Atma and Anatma are mixed up. I am not able to delineate myself from this whole sea of others. I'm not able to see where I am and what is this and the status of this other. I'm not able to deal with it. The other seems like more dangerous than I am. This is what it is, and becomes a cause for fear. Or if the other is not, this is nivritti issue. If I am running away from the other, it's bigger than me and it's a cause of fear. Otherwise, the other becomes a cause of longing that I can never have. It becomes a cause, the presence of the other becomes either a cause for intense longing which leads to sorrow. Because even if you have the other, do you really have the other? You don't have the other. Yeah. And even if you have the other, sometimes you wish you didn't have the other. Yes. And then what? If you long for the other, it becomes a cause for sorrow. And then if you don't long for the other, if you want to avoid the other, certain others you long for, certain others you avoid. If you avoid the other, it becomes a cause for bhaya, fear. And both these, fear and sorrow, is the outcome of samsara. Samsara means fear, samsara means sorrow. That's why all the Upanishads talk about shoka nivritti and bhaya nivritti, two ways to overcome samsara. Sometimes one predominates the other, depends upon the longing. If the longing is to be away from that other, then it becomes a cause for fear. If the longing is to merge with the other, then it becomes a cause for sorrow, because that merging is not possible. Merging of Atma and Anatma is not possible, because Anatma is already Atma. Atma is never Anatma. In fact, the next mantra is going to show that, but we still have a ways to go. So let's take a break. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Now you can write your questions. I'll come back and look.